There we go.
All right. So, as we were speaking, the change now is to stop looking to the outside world to get our benefit, to stop looking for the out. There still will be interactions, there'll be things to do with the outside world, there'll be tasks to do. But that demand that we have inside to find our joy by getting it from the outside world and to recognize that the outside world is not designed to make you happy. It's
Mm.
designed to abuse you and to use you. It's designed to keep you in a state of victimhood, and that any joys that you get from the outside world will be the outside joys of a victim having done what he was told to do. And we see that as success, the success of the completion of the task that was assigned to us from the outside world. But now we're going to assign a new task on the inside, and we're going to get success at having completed that new task. And we're going to do that over and over and over again as a skill development. Just as a young musician or piano player will practice in seclusion. That I remember when I was playing the piano, when I was young at it, I did not even want my mom to listen to me practice the piano. This is something that has to be done all alone by ourselves to get
Mm.
the mind out of the condition that it had gotten itself into normally. Though the mind is not naturally in that state, it's normally in that state, in the sense that the human mind, once it starts, the human starts to live, we start to create and collect ideas that wind up being mental maps. And then the rest of our lives are spent in reinforcing these maps. But we also know that the map, especially the older the map it is, then the less likely it is to be very exact to what things are right now. Uh, Here's an even clear example of that is satellite images are old, sometimes several years old. There is one case where the Chinese government built an entire airport that's not on Google Maps. And yet they've got planes flying in and out of it. Where did they build it? They built it at sea. They actually put up all the sand that it took to build up an island
Right.
and then paved it as a runway, put all of the stuff out there, and started using it as a national airport so fast that Google Maps doesn't even keep up with it. So if Google Maps, the satellite images, can't keep up with reality, how do we hope to be able to use the maps that we started making in childhood to match reality today? And so we see the world the way that saw the world when we were children. We saw our parents as authority figures, and so we start looking for authority figures in the outside world. And we find them governments, religions, schools, businesses, they all will play that role because, for instance, the big businesses need customers. And so they will tell the customers, if you buy our product, it will make you happy. They did that with automobiles back in the 1950s when they would put the automobile, a bright, shiny new car, on a platform of a turntable that spun around, and standing beside the girl with a great big smile on her face, dressed in a fancy evening gown, so that they were actually selling cars by associating a transportation vehicle with a sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
They invented, the automobile industry invented the concept of a chick magnet.
Right.
And so a lot of guys will buy that chick magnet thinking that this is a chick magnet. No, it's just a hunk of metal.
Right.
That's all it is. But we have the idea. And so when the guy buys the car and then he says, what's wrong with my car? It's not attracting any chicks. Well, chicks are not attracted to cars. They're attracted to men who have more than just a chick magnet.
I had one in
And
high school, so I know what you're talking about.
yes, okay. So you've been there, done that. So you know exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what the Dhamma is teaching is to stop trying to get our joy from the outside world, because there's plenty of people out there who will try to accommodate us, thereby making victims out of us, like the offering plate of the church. The church is victimizing the people by promising them something that the church cannot deliver: salvation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The governments, they say they run a slightly different game. In order to get the people to vote for a particular politician, that politician will often want to make these people afraid, upset, and angry, so that if they elect him, he will go in and solve the problem that they now feel upset and angry about. In that
Mm-hmm.
regard, immigration is a manufactured problem. Immigration itself is not a problem, but the Republicans are using it big time to keep people uptight and afraid so that they will vote.
Yeah.
This is victimizing. So the Republican Party victimizes Republicans, makes them feel bad, makes them angry, makes them afraid, because they believe the Republican Party, and the Republican people want something from the Republican Party. So the Republican Party is promising something that they can't deliver. It's always a bait and switch, and the Republican voter never winds up happy.
Right.
At best, they'll wind up confused. So these big businesses, all of the society is not giving anyone what they want. The question is, do you wake up to see this so that you will start taking your happiness from other places, more natural places? And the answer to that is inside. And so I will make my own goals and then reach my own goals and then feel successful about my own goals and then be happy with that success. When I am happy with that success, then I can relax.
Mm-hmm.
We can't relax when we're uptight. We have to feel success and satisfied and happy, and then we can relax. So we have to start working on things that are going to give us success, and we have to also be on alert for, I see this as a success. So
Mm-hmm.
right at the very beginning, when the student starts to watch the breath, and then the mind wanders away from the breath, that's ordinary. The mind has been wandering your whole life. But now that we're saying we're giving a juxtaposition, or let us say a mile marker or a post to compare that wandering mind with, we say we're going to watch the breath, and now the mind is wandering as it normally does, and we can see, oh, wait a minute, the task was to watch the breath, and the mind is now wandering.
Mm-hmm.
And so people normally feel bad because they already see failure. Their intention was to watch the breath, but they're not watching it. And so there's failure built right in. That's just more hindrance. We have to see that the success is to see that the mind has wandered away from the breath. Much of the important parts of the teachings of the Buddha is about seeing, about knowledge. And so we want to train those abilities to be able to see clearly, and to see more often, and to see correctly and clearly. So when the mind wanders away from the breath, and we see that the mind has wandered away from the breath. The natural inclination is to not like it, and therefore we say, "Oh, monkey mind," or "Oh, this is hard," or "Oh, maybe I'm not practicing right," or "Oh, the teacher may not know what he's talking about," or "Oh, this meditation is all a bunch of bunk." These are all the kinds of things that will come up with students when they see the mind has wandered away from the breath and they don't like it. So we have to begin to change things here, and that is to begin to see the success. The success. What is the success? The mind has wandered away, and I don't know it. And now the mind is continuing to wander away, but aha, I see it. I remember. I remember to watch the breath, and I can see that the mind has wandered away from the breath. This is a yippee-ki-yo-ki-yay moment. This is an aha moment. This is, I can see it. Aha, I see you. This is a phrase that you want to start employing very often. Aha, see it. Aha, see it. Over and over. You don't even have to have the I in there. It's just aha, see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You will do that first, which is watching the wandering mind. Eventually, we will start working with that to where the students can see the feelings. Later than that, they can see the underlying tendencies that give rise to feelings. Then we can see the cesspool that is polluted with old memories, which is called Sankara in the Pali, and we can begin to see then how the mind works. We can put together, using the map that the Buddha has provided, we can take a tour through the mind to actually see how the mind works, and this is enormously valuable. But we have to pay attention over and over and over again and start watching what's going on so that eventually we see this, then we see that later, and then we see this over here. And after we begin to make these markers, we can start connecting the dots literally and making a picture out of it. But the dots are coming every time we can see things correctly. When we see what's going on in this particular instance of time, that's like a marker or a dot that we can put down. Aha. And so what we want to do is start laying down a lot of these dots. And these dots are also indications of success. So every time that we see the mind wandering away, we want to take that opportunity to gladden the mind, to take that effort. Aha, I see you, rather than continuing with the old way of doing it. So one's right effort also changes attitude. Now, wrong effort is when we put too much effort in, and most Western students work far too hard in their meditation. It's almost like if I run a long race, then after the end of the race and the race is won, only then can I feel satisfied that I can sit down and take a nap. The answer to that is no, you do not have to run a race. You can be satisfied and lay down and take a nap right now before the race is actually done. You don't have to put that kind of effort into it. And
There's
yet, so,
marathons. Everybody runs marathons around here, and it drives me crazy because I don't know. It's like they run out of guilt, and they don't enjoy it. You can tell.
oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what we can recognize is that it is not a long, hard thing that we get accomplished so that we can relax. Then, in fact, it's actually kind of really stupid to work hard to relax. That makes no sense. Just relax. Why do we have to put a lot of hard work into it? Almost as if the work is exhausting and then we relax because we're exhausted rather than because we're successful. Well, you don't have to be exhausted to be relaxed. You can be joyful and relaxed without putting in any of that kind of effort. Another way of looking at right effort is just the minimal amount of effort to do to get the job done, to where too much effort is actually going to push it too hard. Let us say that You know, there's some things that if you put just the right pressure on it, like a plastic bag that's got a tiny little hole in it or something, that you can put pressure on it, and that air will slowly come out of the bag as you put slight pressure on it. However, if you put too much pressure on it, it'll break the bag.
Right.
And this is the way that most Westerners practice meditation: is they work too hard, they get exhausted, they get up with a tightened mind, they knit their brow, they're working hard with the goal is to relax. That just makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. And yet this is the Western way, because we have been taught that in the outside world, you've got to work hard. You've got to achieve. And when you achieve that success, only then can you be happy. But we're looking at it from a completely different way. We want not one big happiness that was hard work. We want really easy happinesses that we could do really often, really small successes that we can keep repeating over and over and over again, so that we feel successful almost now as a habit. We get into the habit of feeling successful in a way that people who work very, very hard for a long time and then have a moment of success later, they wind up being in the habit of working very hard, because that's what they're doing most of the time. And the successes are few and far between. But when we take it from the other perspective, the Buddhist perspective, right effort is to get a success often, so that we generate and build up the habit of being successful.
Hmm.
And every time that we're successful, we're also joyful. So we're actually creating a skill of being joyful. And I'll tell you this, that happiness is a skill to be developed.
Hmm.
It's not an event. It's a process of building up happiness and joy from the success of your ability to bring the mind out of this muck and mire of the hindrances into this present moment. Aha, I call you, come back. Aha, I come back.
Hmm.
So look at it like training a dog. If you've got the dog that's way out in the area there and you call him and he comes, one of the important things for dog training is to reward the dog. Professionals will give the dog a little piece of candy, but owners who you have the dog as a pet, they'll love the dog. They'll scratch his head. He'll rub his ears. They'll tell him what a good boy he is. All right. If they don't do that, then the dog's got no reward, so the dog is not going to learn to come when it's called. Now, dogs are a little bit smarter than that, so they depends upon your tone of voice. It depends upon what they're doing. So, Lucky can be out in the yard, and she starts barking at something that she sees there, and so we'll say, "Lucky, Lucky, Lucky, Lucky," or "Stop." When she stops, as soon as she stops barking, I will intentionally change my tone of voice. And by doing so, because she has stopped what she was doing, I reward her by the change of voice, saying that this is the way I want you to behave, not barking. And so by changing that tone of voice, now I can call her, she'll come. If I try to call her while she's barking, she won't come, no matter what sweet voice I use. So I'll use a harsh voice with her to get her to stop talking or stop barking. And then I will immediately change the voice into a sweet voice. And she'll come, and then I give her all the attention. All right. So this is exactly what we want to do with our own mind. We want to reward the mind. We want to see the success that the mind does come back. You can see the mind. Never mind the mind has wandered away. Come back. Start again. So the mind coming back to this present moment is a success. And so we congratulate the mind. That's good. You can do this. You begin to change your attitude to the attitude of a winner. You see, when we have the old idea of, oh, meditation is hard, oh, this is difficult, oh, I'm a failure because I caught my mind not watching the breath when that was the order. So this is a position of a loser. And it's very difficult for meditators to get out of that loser's position. I've known meditators that meditated for 20 years. And and they're really dedicated and they really want it, but they keep suffering with their meditation rather than enjoying it. And the enjoyment is going to come from that secret of success, not a big success, a little success. Aha, I caught you. And then again, aha, I caught you. And then the mind will wander again. And then I caught you. And every time that the mind wanders away, we go through a little sequence of events that has all four of these path factors. Right view comes first. Right view comes first. You wouldn't have ever called me if you didn't have right view. Okay, Donald Trump is not going to call me.
Yeah, that would be a
Right.
miracle.
All right. No, that would be a wrong number. So anyway, the point that we're making is that you already have some right view going, and as you see things more clearly and more carefully, you look and you inspect and you watch, then the better a detailed view of what life really is like will start to emerge from you. The better you look, then the more closely you can see actually how the mind does work. And eventually within that, you will see that, and by the way, there's no self in there. There's no constituent component. It's just all process. So we have to start seeing the process of the mind, and we have to remember to see the process of the mind. And right from the very beginning, when the mind wanders away, we've got that automatic right view of saying, I'm not going to just let it wander away, because I've seen students who do that. These kind of students will have the idea that, meditation for an hour means that I've got to rack up enough hours. I got to sit on the floor in the meditation hall, and somehow some magical common machine is in the sky is going to record the number of hours that I have sit here. And when I get a magical number, say 100 or 10,000 hours or whatever like that, then I will get my reward. Bliss will come, or nirvana, or whatever will happen because I put the time in.
Mm-hmm.
People do have that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it's even got a name. That name is called choiceless awareness.
Mm.
They're aware of the hindrances, but they're making no choices about coming out of those hindrances. They see the suffering, but they're making no effort to come out of that suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But let's not practice that way. Let's have the right view that we can come out of the suffering. And that we can come out of the suffering by practicing the Eightfold Noble Path. So the first thing then, the first skill that has to be developed is sati. Sati, to remember. They call it mindfulness, but really it's to remember to watch the breath. Once we remember that I was going to be watching the breath, but the mind has wandered away, that's that magic moment when we can see that sight. I can see it. That's success. And we say, aha, I caught you. Aha, I can see what's going on. Aha, I know what's happening. That aha is kind of an effort, but that little effort of aha, I see you has now chased the hindrances out of the mind. And now what is in the mind? Aha, I see you is in the mind. Not whatever we were thinking about. So we're already gaining some success. Now the next step then is further right effort of taking and bringing us into this present moment, right now. Aha, I see you right now. We take a deep breath, we go into Anapanasati, and we take a really deep, long breath that oxygenates the body. And then we take a really long out breath and we relax. Like that. So we get the reward. The success is from seeing the mind, and the reward is the joy and the relaxation. And we do that, and we start doing that over and over and over again. We do it on the sitting cushion. that our job is not trying to concentrate the mind. We're more intent exactly on reorganizing the mind.
Mm-hmm.
I've just recently read a story about Melinda, and that it's got a very good analogy about what concentration is. Imagine, do you know what a yurt is? Or let's say a tent that's got a center ridgepole.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a center ridgepole, and then the yurt has wood that is kind of in a circle, but all of the rafters of the ceiling come up to just one point, and that one point is then supported by the ridgepole,
Right.
so that all of the other poles around will come up to this one point, this apex, where everything comes together.
Right.
This is what we mean by the word samadhi, is when things come together. And yet the Western idea is concentrated as like something that's really tight or really small or really deeply focused onto something.
Mm-hmm.
But rather we're talking about a samadhi is when things collect together. So what are we collecting together? Right now we're collecting these 4 points of the Eightfold Noble Path, that when we do it properly, it will collect together and organize the mind so that the mind becomes more unified. That in fact, when the mind was in hindrance, it was scattered. It would move from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. Or it will go and spin around and around and around and around. Like if you're writing an email, you may write that email and then write the next paragraph and then the next paragraph. But now the third or the fourth paragraph is just repeating what you said in the first paragraph in new words. And so it just spins around and around and around and around, but it's not unified. It's spread out all around a racetrack, I guess. So by using one's right view and right sati, working with right effort, we take on right attitude. And the right attitude is, I can do this. The right attitude is, no matter how obstructed the mind becomes in the sense of how often, or that it keeps going back to the same thing over and over and over again, like a problem could be solved. Like, for instance, you've got to give a speech tomorrow. You already know the stuff about the speech, but today you're going to spend the whole day just circling around that speech over and over and over again. But every time that you recognize that you're playing with that speech again, you can come back and say, never mind, I don't have to prepare that speech. I'll do that speech when I'm talking. That speech can be a natural speech. It does not have me to wear myself down all day today thinking about that speech tomorrow. I could just walk in there naturally and give a really excellent speech. So whatever I'm thinking about today, if it's worthwhile, I'll think about it tomorrow. That gives us an enormous feeling of success. I can do it. No matter how obstructed the mind is, I can throw that stuff out and I can clean out my mind and come to this present moment and see things the way they really are and see the truth now. Not my opinions, because I just threw the opinions out and now I'm actually looking. So this has an enormous change in attitude. The attitude from a loser to the attitude of a winner. The Buddha was referred to as a lion. Many sutras talk about him being a lion. There's even Shambhala has changed the name of their magazine to the Lion's Roar. And it shows that Buddha was successful. He was not a lamb. He was not a victim. He was not dinner. All right. And so that's you too. If you're going to practice and follow in the footsteps of the Buddha and you do it correctly, it's not going to lead you into lamb park. It's going to lead you into lionhood. And so we start to develop that right away. This is a skill to be developed, one's right attitude. That's why it's so important that it's on the list of the Eightfold Noble Path. The attitude of a lion, the attitude of a winner, the attitude of I can do this, the attitude of I can clean out my mind, and take on the success of that and the joy. So we become then, with this new attitude, we start to develop being satisfied with that success. And the satisfaction then is what helps us to relax. Got it. We feel satisfied with our progress. Most students rarely feel satisfied with their progress. They always want more, 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 more. Even I'm getting success and moving from one success to the next, I still don't feel satisfied. I want more, 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 more. But as we develop correctly, as we've developed this position of being a lion, the one who can do this, now we become not just successful, we also become satisfied with our practice.
Mm-hmm.
And with that comes safety and security, because we let the old fears go away. Am I practicing right or not? We know we're practicing right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we develop these things that are called power in the Pali. The word is iti. Idiyapada is the word pada is like a footing, like a pedal, or a pedestal. It's like a foundation or a footing stone. Okay, so the footing or the base of power is nothing but these four items that I've mentioned, right? Sati, right investigation, right effort, and right attitude. These are the powers, the bases of power, and the power itself is success, satisfaction, safety, security, and then ultimately the big one, the feeling of wealth. Okay, the feeling not of status or high position, but rather that now there's many people, billionaires, almost never feel wealthy. What they feel instead is the result of their greed. So they feel the satisfaction of the money that they've gotten, but what do they want now? More money.
Mm-hmm.
They still don't feel actually wealthy. Where a Dhamma dude, a monk, can have the feeling of enormous wealth when he has virtually no money at all. But he's still very generous. Wealth creates generosity, but generosity helps create wealth. So if you have the feeling that you're successful and you're satisfied, if you're satisfied enough, then you're really over satisfied. So imagine it like that. Imagine that you've got not necessarily a bathtub with all the plumbing of a bathtub, but a huge bucket, and that you've got a water tap or a hose that's feeding water into that bucket. In the very beginning, when we start to fill it up, it looks empty. But slowly over time, by adding these things to it over and over again, with the hose, in the sense of adding sati, adding joy, adding right effort, improving right effort, developing the skills of right effort and right attitude, along with right view. It's like this bucket eventually starts to fill up and up and up and up and up until something happens, and that is the bucket starts to overflow. That quality of overflowing is now the quality of wealth. It's the quality of excess. That I've got too much happiness. That I need to spread it around. I've got too much joy. Time to spread it around. I've got too much wisdom. Can spread that, and so this is the way. But the bucket itself just overflows. But a Dhamma dude who is full also overflows. He overflows with Dhamma. He's wealthy with Dhamma. He's got all he needs of it, and he can give it away freely and still be completely wealthy, completely rich. So this is a new attitude to take on. That attitude slowly develops, but it develops through the sense of success. Over and over and over again, you feel successful, so that you can say, no matter how obstructed the mind is, I can clean it out and come back to the here now. I know I can do that. And in fact, the Buddha calls this the first knowledge that is super mundane, noble, a factor of the path, and not shared by ordinary people. Ordinary people are in the position of loser. Ordinary people want help. But this first knowledge, the first step of Sotapan, is that attitude change of I can do this. No matter how the mind is obstructed, I can clean it out. Well, you're going to have to do that a lot before you begin to trust that you could do that. But this is actually the eradication of doubt, because you're still in the beginning full of doubt. You don't know whether you can clean the mind out or not yet, because you're not really, really successful at it over and over and over again. But the more you practice this, the more skill of sati that you develop, the more sati that you develop will be then each time is the eradication of the doubt. A little bit of doubt will be washed away with every success. So that eventually the scales will balance in the favor of knowledge and assuredness or confidence.
Yeah.
This is actually what the word Shraddha means. The confidence or faith, but not the word faith in the way that the Westerners use it. What faith for the Westerners means to believe something without any evidence or proof, to behave as something is true without any evidence at all. Shraddha is different than that. Shraddha is the building up of the faith that's based upon past experience of success. In other words, you've got evidence. We don't take faith without evidence. No, we want evidence. And the more evidence we get, then the stronger our faith gets.
Mm-hmm.
That confidence builds up till it becomes that first knowledge. And that first knowledge of the Buddha, the first step on this path of Sotapan is I, without a doubt, know that no matter how obstructed the mind is, I can clean that out and come back to the here and now. And sometimes the student needs to experience that was a little bit difficult to do, because the mind really gets obstructed. It will really get bound up in doing things. A really clear example of that would be early April for Americans. Why? Because they get bound up in the tax day. The April the 15th is coming, okay? And so people their minds will just be caught up in that, just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. A meditator can get caught up in that too, but then he says, I'm either going to do the taxes or not do them. I'm not going to half do them and then worry about them, and then half do a little bit more and then worry about it. I'm either going to do the taxes, or better still, give them to an accountant so I don't even have to do it. But now I'm going to take my mind off of that. So every time taxes come up, I can say, nope, I'm not going to think about taxes. Out it goes. I can throw that stuff out. And then it comes to the point when you say, hey, no matter how much I think about those taxes, I can stop it. And I can cool off. And I can settle down. I can take a joyful moment and be free from thoughts of taxes. This is the first knowledge. It's based upon faith, and it's based upon over and over and over again small successes. What is that success? Aha, I caught you, wandering mind. Come back, take a deep breath. Now, when you're taking that deep breath, you really do want to do Anapanasati step 1, the deep breath. You want to know the in-breath as a deep in-breath. Deep in-breaths have a remarkable quality. The belly starts to open up. The diaphragm moves down. The chest starts to expand for the lungs to hold the oxygen. In that regard, the sides of the sides and the back, you can begin to feel the touch of the cloth of the shirt. You can begin to experience this whole body of breathing when you're taking these deep, long breaths, rising in the Burmese language. They use the word rising because we expect the whole body to rise a little bit. The abdomen's going to rise, the chest's going to rise, even the shoulders. And when you fully pull up the lungs, even the shoulders will rise just a little bit. And then you let it out in a long, slow exhale.
Mm.
And in that exhale, of letting it out, that's a sigh of relief. You've heard that quote many times before. You know, to take a sigh of relief, actually do it. That
Mm-hmm.
long out breath is a sigh of relief.
I can feel like now that I lose a lot of tension on my out breath. I really feel able to lose more tension every time. It's like every time I do that out breath, more it gets deeper and deeper. You just feel it, start feeling it through your whole body. So
Yes, exactly so. That's the whole point of the practice then. Right. You do feel it throughout the body. That's in fact step 3 of beginning to wake up and know the body. Now, here's something very interesting. Unlike dogs and other mammals that are covered with fur, the human body is covered with skin that has no fur, and the sensitivity then is such that the human being, unlike most mammals, now all mammals have neurons throughout their body, throughout the skin, but it's not in the frequency that humans have. Humans have a lot of neurons throughout their skin. And if you use the word neuron then and think of it correctly, that means that the human brain is not just simply located in the cranial cortex. Your brain is all over the body. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to sense things. If there was no brain in the finger, then how would you know the touch of sense of touch? Hang on a second. I've got a student who is asking, and I want to open the conversation, but this is only with you. Let me see what I need to do instead of this. No, that should take a snapshot. Oh, I don't know what to do. This is it. So I'm going to tell her to call in 30 minutes.
okay.
So back to what we were talking about. I have to get my screen back again. Never mind. We'll just leave it here. Okay. So,
hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hello. Yes, I can hear you. I can hear
Okay,
you. I
good
just
deal.
can't make it now that I. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I need to get the right screen back again, and I get what to do. Because now I've got the full Skype screen, and you're in a little thing, and I click on. Oh, there we got it. Finally, I had to double click it. All right. So now I can add her to the call. Okay, so she may answer.
Hello?
Yes, yes. We're on the call with Eric.
Hi.
Hello.
And this is Sage.
Hey, Sage.
Hi. It's kind of breaking up. What did you say, Dhammarato?
I said his name is Sage. I mean, your name is Sage. His name is Eric.
Hi.
Hi.
So I don't know if you got my message, Dhammarato. I Skyped you. I chatted you.
Yeah, that's why I called you. Is I got some message asking about you calling, or you can call tomorrow, or you can call a little later, or you can stay here. Up to you.
Okay, I'll call in 30 minutes, like you said.
Okay. All right.
Okay, bye.
All right. So, back to where we were. This part of the call may be cut out by someone later on Skype. We'll just upload it the way it is. But if you want to edit it, go ahead. So anyway, we were talking about working with the body, liven up and wake up the body. Again, over and over and over again. We started talking about the long breath. So as we recognize that the mind has wandered away from the breath, we start with the long breath. Now, if you continue with the long breath for 5, 10, 20 minutes, you will hyperventilate. That will be too much oxygen in the blood. So we want to only take a few breaths of long, deep breaths, and then let the breath go back to normal. What happens is that the normal breathing that people do is done unconsciously, which means it's being taken care of by a part of the brain that, where we don't have to worry about the breathing at all. Uh, Automatic, just like the heartbeat, that the body will regulate the breathing. You can imagine a kind of human that would have anapanasati in the sense that if they didn't breathe consciously, they would stop breathing and die. But there is something that is automatic breathing. But the MRIs have shown that when a meditator is consciously breathing, the entire frontal cortex lights up. That it actually takes the human part of the brain to manage the breath when we're thinking about it. That if you're actually watching the breath, you actually take control of it. This long breath and the short breath that the Buddha is talking about is a clear indication that the breath is to be controlled. Just like the mind is to be controlled. When you see the mind wandering away in hindrances, you're going to happily, joyfully catch it and bring it back to the breath. And now we're going to start operating the breath intentionally, and to intentionally take a long, deep, slow, happy breath. And on the out breath, intentionally relax. We're going to do this 3, 4, 5, 6 times, depending up to you. But eventually, in there, we're going to let the breathing go back to normal or back to the short breath. Now, when we mean long and short, we're not talking about time, we're talking about the body's movement. So that, in fact, a short breath can be the short breath of where the meditator is well trained now to be able to sit, so that he's breathing very, very slowly. Or let us just use one very. Very slowly is one breath of 10 minutes. But we're going to be down to about maybe 2 breaths a minute, which would be 15 seconds on the in breath, 15 seconds on the out breath. Except that we actually normally let some space between the breaths. So let us say an in breath of maybe 10 seconds. And then between the in breath and the out breath, maybe 1 second or 2 breaths a second. And then the out breath is going to be a long, slow exhalation of maybe 10 to 15 seconds, followed by an emptiness between the out breath and the in breath. And you let that go for a while. And then when the body is ready to take in a breath, we do so. And we'll take in another long, slow in breath. All right. So this is how but the body doesn't move much. These are actually considered short in the sense of how much the body is moving, though it takes a long time to do. But so you can do a long breath or a short breath in a short time or a long time. It's not related to time. It's related to how much you're actually going to move the body. So in that long breath, you really want to take in a lot of air, to move the body a lot, to fill it up like a balloon, and then to let the air out of the balloon. Later, when we do the short breath, it's not going to bring that much air into the body. It's going to be a more shallow breath, a more natural breath, where in the long breath, we're going to actually exercise the bottom of the lungs, the middle of the lungs, and the top of the lungs.
So even the chest, it's not just belly breathing, it's the chest and everything.
Build it up, okay? Here's the experiment is that take a deep breath in and then see where you can put more air, and then take a little more air and really, really fill up. Now, you don't have to do that every time, but you want to really make sure that you're filling up so that you know what it's like, so that you can naturally start taking long, deep breaths to really fill things up. Because this is actually a purification process. When the lungs are breathing in a normal way, there is still pollutions left, not only in the air that's still left in the lungs, but there is molecules around the bacilli of the lungs. But when you get good, fresh air in there, then that is almost like a scrubbing process. And so a lot of old crap that's in the blood can come out, that would come out of the blood. In fact, the out breath is very, very complex. A lot of people think that you breathe in nitrogen and oxygen and then you let out a little carbon dioxide. But oh no, the out breath is full of crap. Water vapor, amino acids, the residue of adrenaline, all kinds of stuff. That's very small molecules, to where the kidneys and the liver take care of larger molecules out of the brain, the really heavy stuff that comes out in the urine. And then the food system works with the bowel. So the very heavy stuff is the processing of food. And then the urine is the process of cleaning the blood. But so do the lungs. The lungs do quite a lot of that. And in fact, meditators who drink water, their urine becomes quite light, quite clear. You can do the breathing correctly, but then not drink any water, and the urine will still be dark. But if you also know that if you drink enough water, only water, then you can piss enough to where the urine also becomes clear. But you can also see the combination. If you're doing a lot of deep breathing, then that is a purification. And this is an important purification, to purify the body with these out breaths and to oxygenate the body and to get it full of blood and whatnot. A lot of people think that, I need to get the breathing small and very, very little breathing. That the high jhanas, nobody's breathing very much in the high jhanas, so we should do that right from the get-go. Oh no, we need to keep. In fact, if you don't have enough air, then the meditator will start to get tired very quickly because the brain is not getting enough oxygen. But if we intentionally take these long, deep breaths, then the meditation can last longer, that the body is more vibrantly alive and is more purified, as well as this practice of gladdening the mind and gladdening with these deep breaths and taking relaxation. So this long breath is an important quality of Anapanasati that people miss. So be sure that you're taking long, deep breaths, very satisfying breaths. Like that.
And you said on the short breaths, take 2 per minute?
No, well, the long breath can take longer time.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me, I'll get them backwards. No. The time duration of the breath is not related as to whether it's a long or short breath. I was talking a while ago about a short breath that takes a long time to do.
Right.
The long breath would not take 30 seconds for the long that actually would be a shorter duration. So that's a major mistake that Westerners do because it's a bad translation. A better word to use instead of long would be deep. and instead of using the short, it would be used as normal or natural breath.
Yeah.
Deep breath and natural breath, but it's listed in the sutras as long and short, and it's very confusing that way.
Mm.
So
Makes sense.
now that we've gotten long and short down to deep and normal, we want to take a few deep breaths and then let the breathing go back to normal. As the breathing goes back to normal, you can still watch the breath, but now that we're not controlling it so much, that allows the hindrances to arise again. And you would say, well, why do you want to allow the hindrance to arise again? The answer is so we can catch them and go through this sequence again, so that we can do the practice. All right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to a gym and you're going to be curling, all right, doing this, all right. But guess what? It's this that's the exercise, not just doing this and holding it. That's not the exercise. And yet a lot of people think that that's how they want to practice meditation, is get the mind out of hindrances and focusing on the breath, and now we're just going to keep it there. But that's not the way to practice. Oh no, we want to relax it then, yet let it go back to the old state. Let the force of emotional or intellectual gravity take over again, and then we can catch it. Then we come it up again. And so we're going to do this. This is why we want to develop sati, or this is how we develop sati, is by letting the mind, and it will, run away naturally. So long as we're really, really focusing on long, strong, deep breath, though, that's unlikely to happen because we're still working very strongly to keep that frontal cortex in operation. And so we can do it if we really focus. We can keep taking long breaths and long breath, but when the breath goes back to the normal, then that goes back to the normal straight. The hindrance will rise again. You catch them and say, "Aha! I caught you again," and the mind has just wandered away again. And then we bring it back again with right effort, bringing up right attitude. We have right sati, we have right view. And so we keep developing these factors over and over and over again, and it begins to have the mind become collected together. Over a period of time, the mind will become unified or collected, just like the yurt or a tent. We'll have one single ridgepole, and then all of the others come out from that. That's the kind of understanding for samadhi. It's not tightness, but it's rather when everything collects together at the top. And so this is and we're doing that. We're collecting these path factors. What are the path factors? Right view, right sati, right effort, and right attitude. That attitude is really a most important thing, and yet a lot of Buddhist teachers don't talk very much about it. But you really do have to change that attitude from the attitude of a loser, the attitude of an ordinary person, into the attitude of a noble, the attitude of one who is upright, the attitude of one who is integrated, who is not a mess. We have the attitude of one who is fearless and therefore is truthful. We don't have to hide behind our lies. We don't lie much anymore because we don't need to. And we know that if we lie, then we're tearing ourselves apart. We're separating self from the truth. We're cutting the mind in half, the true part and the lie part. So we stop lying so that we become integrated, integral again. We're looking for the truth. We want to know the truth. We're interested in finding out the truth. So why would I lie to somebody else? If we're dedicated to the truth, let's stay dedicated to the truth. So this is a major quality then of this collectedness of mind is that we naturally, with a mind that's noble, we would not tell lies. We would not harm people with a noble attitude. And so this new attitude then, you see, for most of Buddhism, right action and right speech are listed as precepts in the sense of laws or rules for young Buddhist children and whatnot to practice. But eventually, we stop doing those things because they are rules, but rather we see the value of it. With a noble mind, we do those steps naturally. They're not rules to be followed or things to be considered with perhaps punishments or anything, but rather we follow those because our mind is noble and we have no need to gossip. We have no need to put other people down. We have no need to take things from them because we're already unified. We've already got all we need. That's part of the unification process, is that all of the things that are needed and necessary are already there now. And we get to the point that we're not needing anything. And so right from the very beginning, we want to start practicing this, practicing satisfaction, practicing success, practicing being joyful, practice gladdening the mind. These are all steps in Anapanasati, and the students don't recognize them. Gladdening the mind is actually step 10. In fact, the process goes like this. We do step 1, we're taking a long breath, then we start taking a short breath. So we do step 1 and step 2 of Anapanasati, and then the mind wanders away. And then eventually, which is step 13 of Anapanasati, that everything is temporary. The mind is unified, then it wanders away. But step number 9 is experiencing the mind. So what that means is that sati, that wake-up call, is step 9 of Anapanasati, of actually seeing that the mind has wandered away. The next step, step 10 of Anapanasati, is to gladden the mind. Well, we gladden the mind with success. I saw you wandering away. And by doing that, we now change the content of the mind again. Everything is anicca, everything is changing. And so we can begin to see that changing quality, include the kind of rotting away of the hindrances as we keep coming back to the to this present moment. So it'd be step 1 and 2, maybe step 3, and then step 9, and then 10, with step 13, and then we begin to have the good feelings that we like this because we're feeling successful and we like it. And so now we're bringing Vedana in, step 6 and 7, pleasure. We like doing this. And so this is how we fulfill the Satipatthana, that in fact the Buddha says specifically that we do Anapanasati for the fulfillment of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And I've just shown you exactly how we do that right from the very beginning. Every breath of Anapanasati fulfills the 4 foundations of mindfulness, with the breathing, then the mind, and then the feelings. And so we start watching and watching, watching, watching. And later we begin to get good at watching other things besides just whether the mind is watching the breath or not. Now, here's something else that's very curious, and that is that the verbs that are used in the Anapanasati Sutta, and that is the step 1 and 2 of long breath and short breath, the verb is understand. In other words, as you are doing a deep breath, you can understand that you're doing a deep breath. As you're doing a shallow breath, you're understanding that you're doing a shallow breath. For all of the other steps of Anapanasati, it's not understanding, it's training. We have to train the mind, have to train our feelings. That's an interesting point. And one of the things, and in fact, the very first place that started is to train to be able to experience the body. That takes a little bit of effort to start looking around, to see the movement of the chest, to see the diaphragm go down, to feel the movement of the upper chest and the shoulders as that breath builds up, to feel the expansion of the back and the sides as the breath comes in. And so watching that and noticing it takes a little bit of an effort, but we can begin to see that and experience it. And so experiencing the body is a training. All of the other steps, other than the first ones, the first two are understanding. After that is all training. We have to train to experience the mind. That sati has to be done over and over and over again to see the mind, or to remember to see the mind and then to see it. See the mind, and or to remember to see the mind and then do that. So that's that mental part. But as we gladden the mind, making it bright, like aha, I call you, we begin to feel the success of doing that as a feeling. A feeling then becomes satisfaction. And so all of the satipatthana is to be practiced during our sitting meditation sessions, so that we become fairly good at being able to give ourselves joy, because we're practicing it over and over and over again. I can like this. Oh, this is good. Oh, I really enjoy sitting. Oh, it feels so good to relax. So this is how we begin to practice, to make sure that we're ultimately in this feeling powerful, having the knowledge that we can do this, that it's beyond a doubt, that every time that we do it over and over again is just like another little drop in the bucket of right attitude. And right attitude is fed from Shraddha. The Shraddha is the faith or the knowledge that I can do this. It's not blind faith. It's faith that's based upon the fact that over and over and over again, I'm successful. And I'm successful again. And so we begin to develop the habit of being successful. And in that process, doubt becomes slowly eradicated. That I'm no longer in doubt as to whether I'm a victim or a winner.
Building confidence.
Yes, the building up of confidence. That confidence is that Shraddha. It is wrongly translated as faith. A much better word for translation is confidence. You become confident that we can do this. And that is the first knowledge that is noble, supramundane, a factor of the path, and it is a noble step. That's the important point, that this is the first step of Sotapan. The first step of Sotapan is when that Shraddha is strong enough that we know without a doubt that no matter what, we can clear the mind out. And that's really amazingly, I mean, that's just so wonderful to have that feeling that I know that I can do this now. I may have not completed the journey, but I can do it.
Yeah, that's really important. Nobody else talks about meditations. There's so much spiritual fluff. Nobody ever talks about confidence or winner mentality. For sure, the word winner never comes up when anybody's talking about meditation. But I know exactly what you're talking about, though.
It really is in the sutras, though. It's right there.
Right. That makes sense.
But the Westerners, here's the problem. Buddhism has come to the West in buckets of magic. The buckets were manufactured out of Christianity. And because our foundation of our society is magical, and also because the Buddha's language, the Pali, was also a magical kind of language. What do I mean by magical language? For instance, even an atheist will make a statement of what the devil's wrong with you. Right. The intention is not to talk about that there are devils. But when somebody reads what the devil's wrong with you, 200 years later, they may read that word devil magically.
Mm.
Okay.
Right.
Others
Right.
would
Right.
be like, oh my God,
It's the
OMG.
interpretation.
Okay. It's in the interpretation. And
Yeah.
the word that's being used by the one who is speaking is then reinterpreted magically by the listener. The
Yeah.
actual teachings of the Buddha is anti-magic. And yet somehow or another, the Buddhist religion has become a magical religion.
Yeah.
When it's
I,
brought to the West, it's brought with its magic.
I work in advertising. I know how that works. Trying to make something seem, magical or whatever to lure people into it. I can see that.
Right, but you can also see that adding of that magical to a product by the marketing group is actually adding a bait and switch. The real
Right.
product is the real product, and it may do its real job. And if they would advertise that product as that product that does that real job, then they would be honest. But no, you know that they add layers of magic on top of that. They lay layers of, if you buy our product, your life will be better,
Mm.
which is probably not the case.
Yeah.
And years ago, Paul, I think, was the name of it, and they had all kinds of products that they were advertising on television, little things like knife sets and whatnot like that. And they would always start with, what is such drudgery in your life because you don't have our product? And then in the middle of the commercial, they show how wonderful life is now that you have their product. All right, adding magic to it. Yes, that's the job of the
Yeah.
marketing, is to add that magic so that the product can be overly sold. Not just sold because it's needed, but sold because it's wanted.
Crap.
And that's what is Western Buddhism, unfortunately. It's got so much magical built into it that it becomes not necessarily just purely crap, but it becomes difficult for students to get out of their old bad habits because the magic supports their old bad habits.
Mm.
Here, we're using clear comprehension, we're using clear vision, we're using the ability to see and to mark and to recognize what's going on so that we can avoid the pitfalls of, for instance, buying a line of goods we don't need, believing things that are not true. And our whole society is full of that.
Yeah.
Our whole society is full of that. And the Buddha has a word for it. He calls it Sila Bhatta Paramasa. Sila Bhatta Paramasa means that each one of us individually, through our instinctual way of living, which I'll talk about next time to you, the instinct is to go along, to be social, to do what you're told to do, to fit into society. And the promise is that if you do what you're told to do, you fit into society and you play the game according to the rules you've been given, then you will be happy. And yet nobody's happy. Everybody's working really hard to follow the rules, and nobody's happy. So something's wrong with that model.
Yeah.
Very few. Those who are happy are generally happy because they're not following that set of rules anymore. They've got a new set of rules. What is that new set of rules? Basically, it's this Eightfold Noble Path of the Buddha. It's the Four Noble Truths. And that whole thing can be boiled down to suffering and no suffering. That's our new rule, is to see suffering and avoid it in this present moment. And that rule will always work and leave you in a happy state.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. I work with a lot of people.
So, do you have any questions about this? Pardon?
I said I work with a lot of people who are in constant state of suffering. I don't even know how I would even convince them that they're suffering or that they want that they don't want to.
You don't have. I have not convinced you of anything.
I know.
Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to share your joy with them. So make sure you've got joy to share.
Yep.
All right. Do you have any other questions? You have questions about how to practice? Because we're actually just covering it in detail to make sure that the students know how to practice. If you know how to practice correctly, then we can start to make really good progress.
Anything on posture or sitting or I sit with my back straight.
Number one would be to sit straight, but not too straight. In other words, you don't. The style is to take like a line or a wire and pull your head up straight as if it were there, and then cut the wire and let you relax just a little bit so that you're straight, but you're not tense or you're not pulled up too high. And it also allows for the natural curvature of the spine. If you sit too straight. Now, here's the thing. There's a difference between straight in the sense of straight trying to be as tall as you can versus being merely up straight. And the reason for that is if you're leaning, then gravity is going to pull you down. And so there's actually going to be extra work. Relaxation too much is actually going to put too much pressure. You want to be able to sit up so that its gravity is pulling straight down through the body. That's an important quality of it. But other than that, you want to relax. You sit up straight and you sit vertically so that the gravity is operating in a way that it affects the least. Also, you want to learn to sit still so that you can begin to notice the body when it's talking to you. Itches, touches, little things. The body will become more alert. You'll become attuned to listening to all of the neurons that are on the skin. So that's the thing to do with the posture. Is to sit still and to sit up straight. For as long as you can feel happy. When the mind begins to get tired and it's too much work, then it's time to stop the practice. Give yourself a break when the mind gets tired.
If I catch myself dipping, just stop.
Just in the beginning, it's just good to stop. Later on, I'll give you techniques of how to manage drowsiness. But in the beginning, just stop. Okay?
Doesn't happen too much, but thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Excellent. Well, Eric, I'm glad to talk to you again, and I hope to see you soon.
Glad to talk to you too.
Practice well. Enjoy it.
Hope to talk to you next week. See you.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.